Captain Sarah Chen stared at the flashing warning lights on her ship's maintenance panel, fighting the urge to kick it. The Starweaver wasn't just a ship. It was her home, her livelihood, and right now, a massive headache. 3 systems were running on backup power, and the primary reactor was operating at 60% efficiency. Another costly repair job she couldn't afford. The docking bay of Station Aurora 7 hummed with activity around her, but Sarah barely noticed the steady stream of cargo handlers and maintenance crews. Her attention was fixed on calculating costs she couldn't cover with her current contracts. 6 years of independent hauling, and she was one major breakdown away from selling the Starweaver to some corporate fleet. "Excuse me," a voice like wind chimes drew her attention. "Are you the captain of this vessel?" Sarah turned to find herself face to face with one of the most striking beings she'd ever encountered. The visitor stood slightly taller than her, with crystalline skin that seemed to capture and reflect the harsh station lighting in impossible ways. Faceted planes shifted and moved with each slight movement, creating rainbow refractions that danced across the deck plating. "Yeah, that's me," Sarah replied, trying not to stare. "Captain Chen. But if you're looking for passage, I'm afraid we're not taking on passengers right now." She gestured at the maintenance panel. "Got some issues to sort out first." The crystalline being's surface rippled in what might have been amusement. "My name is Naira. And your issues are precisely why I'm here." She moved closer to the panel, and Sarah noticed how the warning lights seemed to flicker and stabilize in her presence. "I am a resident from the Helios cluster. My people have a unique relationship with technology. We can interface with it, enhance it, heal it." Sarah's eyes narrowed. "If you're selling some kind of miracle repair service, I've heard it all before. Snake oil salesmen come in all species these days." "I'm not selling anything," Naira replied. "I'm offering a trade. Safe passage to the Meridian Gateway in exchange for keeping your ship at peak efficiency during the journey." "The Meridian Gateway," Sarah whistled. "That's a 3-week trip through some rough sectors. What's so important out there?" Naira's crystalline surface darkened slightly. "Let's say I have pressing reasons to reach the gateway quickly and discreetly. Your ship's reputation for reliable cargo delivery suggests you know how to avoid unnecessary attention." Sarah studied the alien carefully. The Starweaver's reputation was good, but not that good. Someone had done their homework. "You're running from something." "Everyone is running from something, Captain Chen." Naira's voice carried a hint of steel beneath its melodious tones. "The question is whether my offer interests you." As if on cue, another warning light began flashing on the panel. Sarah watched in amazement as Naira simply touched it with one crystalline finger. The light steadied, then turned green. The power readout for that system jumped to optimal levels. "That's just a small demonstration," Naira said quietly. "Imagine your entire ship running at that efficiency. No breakdowns, no emergency repairs, no draining your accounts for replacement parts." Sarah ran her fingers through her short black hair, mind racing. Everything about this screamed trouble. Mysterious passenger, too good to be true abilities, obvious secrecy. But the Starweaver needed help, and she was out of options. "Show me," she said finally. "Full diagnostic of the primary reactor. If you can do what you claim, we'll talk terms." Naira's surface brightened noticeably. "A wise decision, Captain." She moved to the access panel, placing both hands on its surface. The entire panel came alive, displays shifting and changing as the reactor's symphony of warnings became a steady, healthy hum. Sarah watched the readouts in disbelief. Power efficiency, 98%. Heat distribution, optimal. Containment field, stable. The kind of performance she hadn't seen since the Starweaver was fresh from the shipyard. "How long can you maintain this?" she asked, trying to keep her voice neutral. "As long as I'm aboard," Naira replied, "though the effects will gradually fade after I leave. Think of it as a temporary optimization, not a permanent fix." Sarah nodded slowly. "All right, We'll need to discuss terms, rules, and exactly what kind of trouble might come looking for you. But first, she extended her hand. Welcome aboard the Starweaver, Naira. The crystalline being's surface shimmered with what might have been relief. She touched her hand to Sarah's in greeting, and for a moment, Sarah felt a subtle vibration, like standing next to a perfectly tuned engine. Thank you, Captain Chen, Naira said. I believe this arrangement will benefit us both greatly. She paused, then added, though I should mention, we may need to depart sooner rather than later. Sarah glanced at the docking bay entrance, where two figures in corporate security uniforms had just appeared, scanning the crowd with obvious purpose. Of course we do, she muttered. Get aboard. We'll discuss the details once we're in clear space. She turned to the ship's comm panel. Starweaver, begin pre-flight sequences. We're leaving early. The adventure was beginning, whether she was ready or not. The Starweaver slipped through the darkness of deep space, running smoother than it had in years. Sarah watched from the pilot's chair as system after system reported peak efficiency. It was almost unsettling, like someone had replaced her temperamental old ship with a top-of-the-line vessel while she wasn't looking. In the engine room, Naira stood with her crystalline hands pressed against the reactor housing. Her form pulsed with subtle light that seemed to flow into the ship's systems. Sarah had spent the last 3 days alternating between amazement at her passengers' abilities and worry about what kind of trouble they were flying into. Your reactor design is quite elegant, Naira said without turning around. Whoever built this ship understood the poetry of particle physics. Sarah snorted. Poetry doesn't keep the lights on, but I have to admit, whatever you're doing is impressive. Care to explain how it works? Naira's surface rippled in what Sarah had come to recognize as thoughtfulness. My people evolved in a system bathed in unique radiation. We learned to channel energy, to sense its flows and patterns. Technology responds to us because, in a way, we speak the same language. Must be nice, Sarah said, checking the navigation display. Having that kind of connection with machines. It has its price, Naira replied softly. There are those who see us as tools to be used, not beings to be respected. The corporations of your sector, particularly quantum dynamics, have been persistent in their attempts to study us. Sarah's hands tightened on the controls. Study. That's a polite way of saying experiment on. Is that who was after you at the station? Yes. They've developed ways to track our energy signatures. We're difficult to detect at range, but... Naira stopped suddenly, her crystalline form flaring bright. Captain, there's something wrong with the long-range sensors. Sarah pulled up the sensor display, but everything looked normal. I'm not seeing any. The ship's AI interrupted. Warning. Unknown energy signature detected. Pattern match. 97% correlation with previous encounter at Aurora 7. They found us already. Sarah swore, bringing up the tactical display. How? We've been careful with our course. Naira moved to the sensor panel, her touch causing the displays to shift and enhance. They're using quantum resonance tracking. Very sophisticated, very expensive. Her voice hardened. And very illegal in most jurisdictions. As sleek corporate hunter ship emerged from behind a cluster of asteroids, its weapons already charged. The comm system crackled to life. Starweaver, this is Security Vessel Quantum Strike. You are carrying stolen corporate property. Power down and prepare for boarding. Stolen property. Sarah glanced at Naira. That's a new low, even for Corps. They've been classifying my people as living technology to bypass sentient rights laws. Naira explained, her surface darkening with anger. Captain, I'm sorry. I should have warned you they might go this far. Sarah was already plotting evasive maneuvers. Warning me wouldn't have changed my decision. Nobody deserves to be treated like property. She opened the comm channel. Quantum Strike. This is Captain Chen. Your classification is incorrect. We're carrying a legitimate passenger under free transport guidelines. Back off. The response was immediate. Captain Chen, harboring corporate assets is a serious offense. This is your final warning. They're powering up their tractor beam. Naira reported, her hands dancing across multiple control surfaces. The ship's systems responded instantly to her touch, power flowing where it was needed most. Sarah smiled grimly. Then let's show them what a properly tuned Starweaver can do. She engaged the main drive, pushing it well beyond its normal limits. With Naira's enhancement, the ship responded like a thoroughbred, executing a complex series of maneuvers that would have torn it apart under normal circumstances. The hunter ship fired, but its targeting was confused by the Starweaver's erratic course. Sarah dove between two asteroids, using their mass to break the tractor beam's lock. They're launching drones, Naira warned. Quantum-linked. They'll be able to track us through normal stealth measures. Normal measures, sure, Sarah replied. An idea forming. But what about abnormal ones? Can you create a resonance pattern that would confuse their quantum tracking? Naira's surface brightened with understanding. Yes, but it would require most of my energy. The ship's systems would return to their baseline efficiency. Better than being caught. Do it. Naira began to glow intensely, her crystalline form vibrating at frequencies that made Sarah's teeth ache. The ship's sensors went crazy as multiple ghost images of the Starweaver appeared on the tactical display. The hunter ship's drones scattered, chasing phantom signals in different directions. Sarah used the confusion to plot a course through the densest part of the asteroid field, relying on skill and instinct where corporate pilots would depend on computer assistance. When they emerged on the other side an hour later, the hunter ship was nowhere to be seen. Naira sagged against the bulkhead, her usual brilliant sheen dulled to a flat gray. That was draining, she managed, but effective. Sarah helped her to a seat. Rest. We're not out of this yet, but you've bought us some time. She studied the long-range scanner, plotting their next move. I've got some contacts in the frontier sectors. People who help others disappear when corps come knocking. It'll mean a detour from your original destination. At this point, Captain, I trust your judgment. Naira's color was slowly returning. Though I suspect this is only the beginning of our troubles. Probably, Sarah agreed, setting a course for the outer reaches of known space. But at least we know the ship can handle it. And please, after saving our necks back there, you can call me Sarah. Naira's surface rippled with what might have been a smile. Very well, Sarah, though I should warn you, corporate hunters are prestigious assignments. The pilot we just evaded, their pride will be hurt. They'll be back, with more ships and better equipment. Let them come, Sarah said, patting the ship's console affectionately. Between your abilities and my flying, we'll show them what happens when they underestimate a good independent ship and crew. The Starweaver sped through the darkness, its systems humming with renewed energy as Naira recovered. They had survived the first test, but greater challenges lay ahead. The Corps wouldn't give up easily, but neither would they. The frontier station looked like a collection of cargo containers that someone had welded together while drunk. Sarah guided the Starweaver toward a docking port that had definitely seen better decades, while Naira monitored their surroundings for any sign of pursuit. Your contact is trustworthy? Naira asked, her crystalline surface reflecting the station's erratic running lights. Nova. She's as trustworthy as anyone who specializes in helping people disappear, Sarah replied, engaging the docking clamps. Which means she'd sell us out in a heartbeat if someone offered enough credits, but she hates the Corp more than she loves money. The station's automated systems scanned their ship, and Sarah tensed until the green clearance light flashed. Their forged credentials had worked, at least for now. As they made their way through the station's dingy corridors, Sarah noticed how other visitors gave Naira a wide berth. Out here, anything unusual was usually dangerous. Nova's office was a converted storage bay filled with mismatched furniture and questionably legal computer equipment. The woman herself sat behind a desk made from an old shuttle door, her dark skin marked with intricate circuit-like implants that glowed faintly. Sarah Chen, Nova drawled, her cybernetic eyes whirring as they focused. "Last I heard, you were running legitimate cargo routes. Must be getting boring if you're visiting me." Her gaze shifted to Nara, and her implants pulsed faster. Well, a resonant, out here in the frontier. Now I understand why 3 different Corp hunter groups have been asking questions. 3? Sarah leaned forward. We only encountered 1. The others are being more subtle. Quantum Dynamics put out a general bounty, but Stellaris Tech and Nova Corp have their own teams in play. Nova's smile was predatory. "Your friend must be very valuable." "I am not property to be valued," Naira said, her voice carrying an edge that made Nova's computers flicker. "Easy." Sarah placed a hand near Naira's arm, not quite touching. "We need information, Nova. Routes, safe harbors, anything you can give us." Nova's fingers danced across her holographic interface. "Corporate hunters are clustering around the main routes to the Meridian Gateway. They're predicting your destination." She paused, studying another display. "But there might be another way. The scatter zone." Sarah cursed. "The scatter zone is a death trap. The quantum storms would tear us apart." "Not necessarily." Naira moved closer to Nova's displays, her crystalline form refracting the holographic light in complex patterns. "With my abilities, I could help navigate the quantum fluctuations. It would be challenging, but possible. And no Corp ship would risk following us." Sarah mused. "Their precious hardware wouldn't last 5 minutes in there." Nova nodded. "Exactly. I can sell you the nav data for the zone's outer edges. What happens after that is up to you." She named a price that made Sarah wince. "Half that," Sarah countered. "And throw in a data wipe of our arrival here." "Done." Nova agreed too quickly, making Sarah suspect the price had been inflated to begin with. "But you should know, there's a hunter ship already in system. High-end model, probably Stellaris Tech. They're being subtle, but my sensors picked them up an hour ago." Sarah was already standing. "Then we need to move." "How long before?" The station's general alarm began blaring. Nova's implants flashed red. They just dropped all pretense. Security systems are being overridden. Multiple armed teams entering through docking bays 3 and 7. "Is there another way out of here?" Naira asked, her surface rippling with tension. Nova pressed her palm to a wall panel, revealing a maintenance tunnel. "Service corridor leads to emergency docking bay 12. It's meant for station crew evacuations." She transferred data to Sarah's portable unit. "Nav data's included. Now go. I need to start wiping systems before they get here." Sarah hesitated. "They'll know you helped us." "Please." Nova's smile was all teeth and cybernetics. "This isn't my first corporate dance. The station's about to have a catastrophic computer failure that will wipe all records and lock down their ships for at least an hour. Consider it a professional courtesy." They hurried through the maintenance tunnel, emerging into a small bay where an emergency shuttle waited. Sarah was already moving toward it when Mara grabbed her arm. "Wait," the crystalline being said. "Listen." In the distance, they could hear boots on metal grating, getting closer. The hunter teams had predicted this escape route. "The shuttle's too obvious anyway," Sarah said, pulling Naira toward a pile of stored cargo containers. "They'd catch us before we cleared the station's defense grid." She pointed to a maintenance airlock. "How do you feel about a spacewalk?" Naira's surface rippled with what might have been amusement. "My people evolved in hard vacuum, Sarah. We find it quite comfortable." "Of course you did," Sarah muttered, checking the seals on her emergency suit. "Just stay close to me. We're going to use the station's hull for cover, then make a break for the Starweaver." They cycled through the airlock just as the first hunter team reached the emergency bay. Sarah led them along the station's exterior, magnetic boots keeping them anchored as they carefully moved between sensor blind spots. The Starweaver waited at its dock, 100 meters and countless dangers away. "Movement," Naira whispered through the comm. 2 suits, approaching from the port side. Sarah saw them. Corporate security in sleek spacesuits, checking each airlock methodically. She gestured to a communications array, and they ducked behind it just before the searchlights swept past. "We're not going to make it to the ship without being seen," Sarah said, watching the patrol patterns. "Not enough cover in the final stretch." Then perhaps, Naira's voice had taken on an odd resonance, "we should give them something else to look at." Before Sarah could ask what she meant, Naira pressed her hands against the station's hull. Energy coursed from her crystalline form into the station's systems. Suddenly, emergency lights began flashing all across the hull. Warning klaxons blared over all frequencies. The hunter teams immediately turned toward the apparent crisis. "Now!" Sarah pulled them from cover, pushing off toward the Starweaver. They crossed the exposed space in seconds that felt like hours, reaching the ship's emergency hatch just as shouts of alarm filled the comm channels. Inside, Sarah rushed to the bridge while Naira integrated with the engine systems. The ship came alive around them, Nova's promised computer crash providing cover as they disengaged from the station. "Multiple ships powering up," Naira reported. "Their weapons are charging." "Let them." Sarah engaged the main drive. "By the time they sort out which alarms are real and which are false, we'll be gone." She pulled up the nav data for the scatter zone. "Ready for something crazy?" Naira's glow pulsed in time with the ship's systems. "With you, Sarah. Always." The Starweaver shot away from the station, corporate hunters scrambling to follow as they headed straight for the quantum storms that made the scatter zone the most feared region of space in the sector. They were committed now. Survival would depend on both human skill and alien abilities working in perfect harmony. And somewhere in the back of her mind, Sarah realized she wouldn't have it any other way. The scatter zone lived up to its reputation. Quantum storms raged around the Starweaver, reality itself seeming to twist and bend in the violet-tinged darkness. Sarah's hands danced across the controls, making constant adjustments as the ship navigated between waves of distorted spacetime. Another wave approaching. Naira called out, her crystalline form pulsing with intense light as she interfaced with the ship's sensors. 40 degrees port, magnitude 7. Sarah banked hard, threading the needle between two quantum distortions. The ship groaned under the stress, but Naira's presence kept the system stable. They'd been in the zone for 6 hours, and Sarah's respect for her passengers' abilities had grown with each passing moment. "How are the hunters doing?" Sarah asked, though she could guess the answer. 2 turned back at the border. The third. Naira's surface rippled with concern. "They're still following, but their ship is taking heavy damage. Their quantum shielding won't last much longer." Sarah checked the rear sensors. The Stellaris tech vessel was about 5 kilometers back, its expensive hull plating already showing signs of quantum erosion. Their pursuit had gone beyond professional duty. This was personal now. "They're going to get themselves killed," Sarah muttered. "No bounty is worth this." "It's not about the bounty anymore," Naira said softly. "Their pilot's pride was wounded when we escaped them before. Now they're trying to prove." She stopped suddenly, her form flaring bright. Massive surge incoming. Multiple vectors. Sarah saw it on the displays. A confluence of quantum storms, converging on their position. This was exactly the kind of event that gave the scatter zone its reputation as a graveyard for ships and crews. "Can we get above it?" Sarah asked, already pulling back on the controls. "Negative. The distortion field extends too far vertically. We need to go through." Sarah took a deep breath. "All right. Link with the nav systems. I'll need split-second course corrections to find a safe path." Naira moved to the navigation console, her crystalline hand sinking partially into the controls. The ship's computer merged with her consciousness, creating a hybrid system that could process quantum fluctuations faster than any normal tech. The storm hit like a tsunami made of broken physics. Reality flickered and warped around them as Sarah piloted through gaps that existed for microseconds. Naira called out course corrections in a voice that seemed to echo from multiple dimensions, the ship responding to their combined efforts with impossible precision. Behind them, the hunter ship wasn't faring as well. Their more advanced technology actually worked against them, quantum distortions playing havoc with their complex systems. Sarah watched on the rear sensors as their shields began to fail. "Their core is destabilizing," Naira reported. "If it breaches, we can't leave them," Sarah said, already bringing the Starweaver around. "No one deserves to die out here." The hunter ship was starting to break apart, pieces of hull peeling away as quantum forces tore at the structure. Sarah positioned the Starweaver above them, extending their cargo grapples. "This is Captain Chen to hunter ship," she broadcast. "Your vessel is breaking up. Abandon ship, and we'll bring you aboard." There was a long pause before the response came. "This is Commander Rivera. Why would you help us?" "Because I'm not the monster your corps make me out to be," Sarah replied. "Now get to your escape pods before we all die out here." The hunter ship was starting to break apart, pieces of hull peeling away as quantum forces tore at the structure. Sarah positioned the Starweaver above them, extending their cargo grapples. "This is Captain Chen to hunter ship," she broadcast. "Your vessel is breaking up. Abandon ship, and we'll bring you aboard." There was a long pause before the response came. "This is Commander Rivera. Why would you help us?" "Because I'm not the monster your corps make me out to be," Sarah replied. "Now get to your escape pods before we all die out here." The hunter crew made their decision just in time. As their escape pods launched, the ship's quantum core finally failed. The resulting explosion sent ripples through space-time itself, creating new distortions that threatened to tear the Starweaver apart. "Hold on." Sarah engaged full thrust, trying to outrun the quantum cascade. Naira poured everything she had into the ship's systems, pushing them far beyond normal tolerances. They caught the escape pods in their cargo field just as the wave hit. For a moment, reality seemed to stop making sense. Sarah saw multiple versions of the bridge, heard conversations that hadn't happened yet, felt time stretch and compress like taffy. Then Naira did something with the ship's systems, creating a bubble of stable space around them. When the chaos cleared, they were through the worst of the storm. The hunter ship was gone, but 3 escape pods floated securely in their cargo bay. Sarah let out a breath she hadn't realized she'd been holding. "Quantum cascade is dissipating," Naira reported, her usual bright sheen dulled from the effort. "But that surge changed the local topography. I'm having trouble getting clear readings on our position." Sarah checked their navigation data, frowning at the results. "We're off our planned course. Way off." She pulled up a star chart, trying to get their bearings. "There's a privateer station in this sector, Haven's Rest. Not the friendliest place, but they don't ask questions and they don't cooperate with corps. And our guests." Sarah glanced at the security feed showing the hunter crew in the cargo bay. Commander Rivera stood with her team, their expressions a mix of confusion and wariness. "We'll drop them at Haven's Rest. They can arrange their own transport from there." She opened the internal comm. "Commander will be docking at a station in about 6 hours. I trust you and your people can behave until then." Rivera's response was stiff but professional. "We will comply, Captain Chen. And, thank you. We would have died out there. Don't mention it. Seriously, don't. It'll ruin my reputation." Sarah closed the channel and slumped in her chair. Well, that was exciting. Naira's surface showed patterns that might have been amusement. "You continue to surprise me, Sarah. Most humans would have left them to their fate." "Yeah. Well," Sarah shrugged. "Maybe I'm trying to prove something too. That not everyone sees your people as tools, or other species as enemies." She straightened up, checking their course. "Besides, having a corp commander owe you a favor. That might come in handy." Indeed, Naira's glow was slowly returning to normal. "Though I suspect our journey is far from over." Sarah nodded, thinking about the challenges still ahead. They had survived the scatter zone, but they were off course, low on power, and now responsible for a crew of corporate hunters turned reluctant passengers. And somewhere out there, more hunters were waiting. But looking at Naira, seeing how their trust in each other had grown through each crisis, Sarah found she didn't mind. Some things were worth the risk. "Get some rest," she told her crystalline friend. "I have a feeling we're going to need your strength for whatever comes next." Haven's Rest loomed before them, a massive structure built into the remains of an ancient space station. Its irregular shape and hodgepodge of additions made it look more like a mechanical coral reef than a space station, perfect for those wanting to disappear. Commander Rivera and her crew had been surprisingly cooperative during the journey, perhaps humbled by their brush with death in the scatter zone. As Sarah guided the Starweaver toward their assigned dock, Rivera approached the bridge. "Captain Chen," she said, her corporate polish showing cracks. "Before we part ways, there's something you should know. The hunt for your friend. It goes higher than you realize." Sarah kept her eyes on the docking procedures but listened carefully. Next to her, Naira's crystalline form dimmed slightly. "Quantum dynamics isn't just studying resonance," Rivera continued. "They're trying to weaponize their abilities, create a way to control them, to turn them into living ship components." She glanced at Naira. "The bounty on you isn't about bringing you in. It's about preventing you from reaching the Meridian Gateway. Because something's waiting there," Naira said softly. "Something that would expose their plans." Rivera nodded. "A hidden archive. Proof of illegal experiments, failed attempts at synthetic resonance, everything. That's why they're willing to spend so much to stop you." The ship's docking clamps engaged with a solid thunk. Sarah turned to face Rivera. "Why tell us this?" "Because I've seen enough to know we're on the wrong side." Rivera's expression hardened. "But be warned. Director Kane is personally overseeing this operation now. He's waiting at the gateway with enough firepower to start a small war." After Rivera and her crew disembarked, Sarah and Naira sat in the ship's small galley, planning their next move. The Starweaver's systems hummed smoothly around them, restored by Naira's abilities during their rest stop. "We could find another way," Sarah offered. "Another place for you to recover, heal." Naira's surface rippled with determination. "No. The archive doesn't just contain proof of their crimes. It has data about my people's origin, our true potential. We can't let them suppress that knowledge." She turned to Sarah. "But I won't ask you to risk your life further. You've already done more than." "Don't even start," Sarah interrupted. "We're in this together now. Besides," she grinned, "I've always wanted to ruin a corrupt director's day." They spent 3 days at Haven's Rest, making preparations. Sarah called in favors, traded information, and acquired some questionably legal upgrades for the Starweaver. Naira worked with the ship's systems, optimizing them beyond their design specifications. When they finally approached the Meridian Gateway, they were as ready as they could be. The massive structure filled their view screen, its ancient technology still maintaining the stable wormhole at its center. And arrayed before it was the largest corporate fleet Sarah had ever seen. 12 hunter ships, Sarah counted, 3 heavy cruisers, and that monstrosity must be Kane's command carrier. She whistled. "He really didn't want you getting here." "Sarah Chen." The comm crackled with a voice that dripped authority and contempt. "This is Director Kane. Your theft of corporate assets ends here. Surrender the resonant, and you may yet avoid spending the rest of your life in a mining colony." "Let me think about that," Sarah replied, her hands moving across the controls. "Naira, show them our answer." Naira's form blazed with light as she merged with the ship's systems. The Starweaver's engines roared to life, enhanced weapons deploying as they charged straight for the corporate fleet. Kane's ships moved to intercept, their superior numbers and firepower forming an impossible barrier. But they had never faced a ship with both a skilled human pilot and a fully integrated resonant. Sarah's tactical knowledge combined with Naira's abilities made the Starweaver dance through space like a living thing. Corporate weapons found only empty space where they fired, while precise counterattacks slipped through their defenses. "The archive is in the gateway's maintenance section," Naira called out, her voice harmonizing with the ship's hum. "If we can get close enough, I can interface with it remotely." Then that's our target. Sarah rolled the ship through a barrage of energy weapons, their enhanced shields barely holding. Kane's not going to make it easy, though. The command carrier moved to block their approach, its massive weapon arrays powering up. You cannot win this, Chen. Kane's voice was cold with rage. The gateway is corporate property. The resonance are corporate property. The very space you fly through belongs to us. You know what your problem is, Director. Sarah shot back, executing a maneuver that should have torn the ship apart. You think owning something means you understand it. She glanced at Naira. Ready? Naira's crystalline form was glowing like a small sun. Ready. The Starweaver shot straight for the command carrier, weapons blazing. Kane's ship returned fire, but Sarah had noticed something during the battle. The corporate vessels were holding back, afraid of damaging the gateway. She had no such restrictions. Their enhanced weapons struck the carrier's primary power coupling, creating a cascade of explosions along its hull. As Kane's ship tried to compensate, Sarah executed a maneuver that took them through the explosion's debris field, using it as cover to slip past the corporate line. Interface established, Naira announced as they approached the gateway. The archive. It's more than we imagined. Not just evidence of crimes, but the true history of my people. We were not created by the radiation of our system. We were its guardians, meant to maintain the balance of energy itself. That's fascinating, Sarah said through gritted teeth, dodging fire from the regrouping corporate ships. But can we admire it somewhere else? Transfer complete. Naira's glow subsided slightly. And I've sent copies to every major news network and regulatory body in 3 sectors. Kane's crimes are exposed. As if to underscore her words, the corporate fleet's coordination began to break down. Some ships were actively retreating, while others seemed unsure of their orders. The command carrier still pursued them, Kane's fury evident in its relentless attack. Time to go, Sarah announced, plotting a course through the gateway. Unless you want to stay and watch the corporate fireworks. I've seen enough, Naira replied, her voice warm with friendship and gratitude. Though I find myself reluctant to end our journey together. Sarah smiled as she engaged the gateway's transit sequence. Who said anything about ending it? I think the Starweaver could use a permanent technical advisor. Assuming you're interested in a more long-term arrangement. Naira's surface rippled with joy. I would like that very much, Sarah. As they passed through the gateway's eternal light, leaving the chaos of Kane's crumbling empire behind, Sarah reflected on how much had changed since a crystalline being had walked into her life. She had started this adventure trying to save her ship, but she had found something far more valuable, a friend who literally made her world brighter. The Starweaver emerged into new space, its systems humming with power and possibility. Whatever came next, they would face it together. So, Sarah asked, setting a course for open space, where should we go next? Naira's glow pulsed with anticipation. Everywhere. The adventure was just beginning.